What's up, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Week 2's developer blog just went live. They're talking a lot about supports in this one and other struggling heroes with a lot of detail. Let's jump into it. Overwatch 2 PvP Beta Week 2 developer blog. A renewed interest and excitement for the support role, improved queue times, improved survivability for support heroes, behind-the-scenes testing of Moira and Mercy, and thoughts around historical shield breaker heroes are top of mind for our team as we reflect on the second week of the PvP beta. Supports. We've been closely monitoring the performance of the support role following last week's balance patch and saw improvements for Baptiste, adjustments for Ana, and an introduction of a montage-worthy new passive ability for Zenyatta, the Spartan Kick. Yes, no kidding. As is often the case when we increase effective health for a hero, Zenyatta saw all-around improvements in performance over the weekend. Even with a higher pick rate, we saw our Omnic Monk's win rate improve by 5%, putting him in a healthy, albeit slightly strong, position. Perhaps not surprising, the additional 25 shield health resulted in a 7% reduction in his death rate, with a halo effect of a 10% improvement in kills secured, because of course, if you're surviving longer, you're going to be involved in more eliminations. Anecdotal feedback regarding his new passive, Snap Kick, indicates that the knockback is an effective way to line up kills more consistently, as well as just keep things off you, of course. A decrease in the duration of Ana's biotic grenade netted a slight 2% decrease in her win rate. However, the increased biotic rifle uptime ensured her overall healing output on average remained unchanged. Even with the adjustments, Ana remains a popular pick, with her usage rate staying the same. So remember, the impact of anti-nade, it went down a little bit, but they gave her more ammo, so they kind of smoothed out that power level. Pretty intelligent change on their part. And of course, with Ana being the only support with a ranged shutdown ability, Sleep Dart, she's going to remain pretty strong in the meta for a lot of reasons for a long time, I feel. It's going to be tough for her to not be one of the biggest playmakers from the role. Queue times across the board have improved significantly since last week's patch. While correlation might not always equal causation, we're optimistic that support improvements had a lot to do with it. Following Thursday's update, players on average experienced 48% less time spent waiting for a match, gradually leveling off around 22% over the weekend. For both damage and support players, beta times are now faster than the 6v6 live service without sacrificing match fairness or quality measures. A little bit goofy to compare part of the queue times from one game to another. I think that's kind of apples and oranges a little bit because the context of it all changes the queue times, but the thing that's a little unsaid here is that tank queue times in both Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 are either really fast or really long because people want to get the reworks or they don't like experiencing tank. What they're saying here is that waiting to play a squishy character, whether it's damage or support, is no different now, according to their measurements here, based on, I think, like making the support role not be as weak. While these positive indicators from last week's patch are great to see, we still have a lot of work to do. We compared the death rate for each hero and role to their counterparts in the live game and identified a trend where both support and tank heroes are dying more frequently on average in the beta. Diva and Orisa explain this trend for tanks. Orisa has a completely new kit and playstyle, while Diva finds herself in unfamiliar territory as a solo tank, with players gradually adjusting their approach. We'll continue to monitor and tune individual heroes as needed. So this is very interesting. I think would make a lot of players surprised to find out, especially in the case for Orisa. They're saying here that Orisa players are dying way more in the beta. And I think if you would have listened to very early feedback from the beta, people were clamoring for Orisa to be nerfed. She's unkillable. You can't do anything against her. Well, I think that was mainly due to a lot of players just kind of walking to the TS1 robot in a straight line, especially support players, and Orisa will just gobble you up playing that way. Whereas, as the players learn that you can just take angles around the map and make it hard for Orisa to close the distance, well, she's kind of a joke of a pick in that way. So I don't know what they do. She's kind of the Bastion of this game, in my opinion, where Bastion in Overwatch 1 was an incredibly oppressive hero if you didn't know how to deal with him. And, well, what did Blizzard do? They kind of just waited for the player base to learn how to counter him, and for the most part, he didn't do a lot. Orisa feels kind of similar to me, where she really punishes the lack of experience. Part of it, of course, is that how do you learn how to play Orisa when she's completely revamped, and Diva as well. But Doom got reworked too, and he's not listed here. I think that's because Doom is just a really good character. Diva, tips to you Diva players, it's even more important to play defensive as Diva in Overwatch 2. And that makes a bit of a problem for her, because I think if you're going to commit to that style and kind of play around sniper angles, Sigma is just kind of a better pick for that and has more firepower. So Diva is like an anti-dive, reactionary defensive pick in Overwatch 2 so far, and there's just not much need for that oftentimes because you want to be playing aggressive. So a little tricky what they're going to do with Diva. It might be hinged around, though, Winston. If Winston was a bit worse, like I think Bubble, they overbuffed it, in my opinion, actually. I think people really undersold how good Winston might be with a sniper rifle railgun attached to him, and I don't know if he needs Bubble to be as oppressive as it is. While there was little difference at lower ranks, support heroes starting at high diamond and above saw the highest jump in return visits to the spawn room. At these ranks, the increased pressure of a more skilled tank or damage player on the backlines has seemingly become too much for even high SR support players to handle effectively as compared with a live game. The most significant difference was at Grandmaster, where the support role saw an increase in 15% in frequency of deaths than compared to live. That's really interesting. So it turns out, despite a lot of content creators very rude Eddie the Chump claiming that supports just need to get good. Turns out, even when you do get good, playing against the better tanks and supports, they delete you even faster than they do at lower ranks. So kind of problematic, I guess. I think in the higher tier Overwatch 1 gameplay, the positioning of higher ranked players was so good that you could like secure your backline in a very reliable way. Whereas higher ranked gameplay in Overwatch 2 is all about attacking the enemy's backline. So almost de facto, based on that meta, regardless of the skill, they're just going to be targeted. And of course, when players are more mechanically competent with their abilities, you know, a Doomfist coming in, there's a big difference between me diving you with Doom and get quaked on diving you with Doom, right? Like one of us is gonna be better at landing the abilities to assassinate a support. We know support players want additional tools and power to be more impactful in Overwatch 2. And the role remains our highest adjustment priority as the beta continues. This beta or the next one? A little confused on that one. Philosophically, we are also mindful of the dangers of mobility creep and believe it's imperative that support heroes can survive and be powerful even without mobility tools, because there's a lot of forum threads, I think, that, well, maybe all the heroes just need to be able to be mobile, and, well, I think they don't want that. The supports have that really strong support passive that after a second you start to self-heal. The biggest support tip I can give you right now is you don't need constant uptime to babysit other players and heal them. That's not what's important. What's important is play your own life and be close to cover so you can abuse that support passive, where you'll be playing positions farther away from the engagement, I think. And when you do that, well, then you're self-sufficient and feel like an Overwatch 2 character. But if you play too close to the fight, then you're the target of everything. The devs say heroes like Lucio and Moira are demonstrations of the effectiveness of mobility in Overwatch 2. We've seen early indicators of a playstyle shift in the support community to favoring mobility and the strong ability to either disengage completely or face down flankers one-to-one. As we make balanced decisions on how, or if, to address this moving forward, we do so with a goal of ensuring that there is diversity in design and abilities for the support role, and that effectiveness isn't determined solely by a hero's mobility potential. And I think we really should stop and wait a second and see the effects of this Zenyatta buff in full effect. I don't know if we've really figured out the ramifications of Zen being as good as he is, and if he is as good as I think he is, you might not need to be super hyper flanky all the time. More specific balance considerations. We're planning another balance patch this week, which I assume must mean later today or tomorrow, because there's only 2 days left, and we'll include specific commentary there explaining those changes, but we also wanted to share some broader thoughts about some heroes that have been subjects of recent community discussion. Moira. Moira's versatile kit has translated well in the emerging 5v5 meta. Moira continues to be a flexible pick with her high heal and high mobility providing effective at dealing with a more constant push by flankers. As a result, we haven't observed a meaningful change in win rate between live and beta, meaning that Moira stayed relatively stable in comparison to other support heroes. Conversely, we hear your feedback that Moira's current stability doesn't mean she should remain unexamined. As we consider potential changes, we have a goal of providing her with increased utility that feels impactful and increases her potential to be a playmaker while also tempering the damage and healing of Biotic Orb and Biotic Grasp to put her more in line with other supports. Now, if you remember, they attempted something like this on the live version of the game where they attached a cleanse ability to Fade. They didn't ultimately put it in, but that sounds like the type of thing that they're trying to do. They want it to be less about her stat output. This is exactly the things that I've said about Moira that I find kind of overwhelming. It's just like she has a lot of vague healing and damage stats that she can just aim in a direction, and that's why she's good. That's not as interesting as interacting with, like, let's say, the knockback game of support gameplay or speeding up your team. Like, these are other more interesting things that you can do with a support position. So I hope we see what they're going to do with Moira and make her more of a support playmaker and not like a raw stats I win just because I have the buttons to do so. Mercy. Any veteran Mercy player will tell you the full potential of Mercy is not unlocked until you've learned the techniques that accompany her kit, particularly the super jump. While there are many guides and videos for those wanting to learn the method, it ultimately requires a complicated sequence of keystrokes and conditions that are not accessible or apparent to the average player. Internally, we have started testing improvements to Mercy's verticality, leaning into the unintended consequences of player discovery. We want to take it a step further by making the ability to super jump more consistent for everyone, not just the players who know the not-so-secret technique. Mercy's mobility has always been a core part of her kit, and we will continue to look for ways to accentuate it and make it more accessible for everyone. I think probably a good change. Like, so many Mercy players know how to do this anyway that I don't think it would break the game if they just made it like a simple button press to shoot vertically in the sky. I'm totally fine with this. They've talked about this for a long time as well, so maybe now in the upcoming betas is the time that they actually get to address this idea, since supports are kind of in the focus of them right at this moment. Junkrat and Symmetra. Alongside Moira and Mercy, we also want to acknowledge the growing conversation around Junkrat and Symmetra. Both heroes excelled as shield breakers, and the shift to a single tank composition has made both heroes feel slightly out of place in the emerging meta. Junkrat continues to present interesting design questions. We've considered increasing frag launcher's projectile speed. However, we found that by doing so, we risked making his signature weapon feel more like a rocket launcher, which I'm okay with. Just make it a rocket launcher, make it a hit scan if you want. Instead, we've explored ways, don't actually do that, I'm just kidding. Instead, we explored ways to better reward direct hits as a form of skill expression. So maybe that we'll see in the next upcoming patch. We don't exactly know what that is at the moment. We agree with community feedback that the reduction of shields being thrown about the battlefield makes Symmetra's photon projector harder to get value from, and at the same time, Symmetra is suffering from increased overlap with heroes like Mei, who possess better tools for close quarter survivability. While these heroes aren't our current focus, they're on our radar for future adjustments and continued monitoring. So, of course, the two characters that were good in the tank exchange in a game with less tanks have less to do. Stands to reason they'll get to it soon, TM. Of course, you guys know, if you've seen my Junkrat video, I think he's somewhat cheese pick viable as like a Genji Echo budget tier character, but you can't play him just to hold a position and shoot at tanks only like you used to. You're gonna have to actually get in there and dive bomb in order to have a chance. And I think if you have that playstyle like a Genji might, although you can't survive as good as Genji and Echo, so he's definitely worse. I don't think he's F tier like people make him seem. That's just my opinion. At worst, I can see him being like a C tier pick, because at least he can move around the battlefield, right? Like, Symmetra's ability to teleport just doesn't really get her anything now. Like, you have to play a full team comp to do that with coordination. And even if you did, I don't think it would be that good with random players. You'd have to be like a pro team to get it to work. And I still don't even know if that's necessary. Rush comp doesn't even currently look that good in Overwatch League. So I do think they definitely need to rework Symmetra. That's it for this discussion on the Week 2 developer blog. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.